Jazz. What is it? Zane, this week I have been listening to the album Numbers Maker by the band Desertion Trio. AllMusic has placed this album in the modern free subgenre under the umbrella jazz. Now, modern free is just modern free jazz. Free jazz is a type of jazz that just felt too constrained by concepts such as melody, tone, and tempo, and typically breaks from standard conventions. Just to get an idea of what's out there, I listened to some snippets of other songs considered free jazz, and thankfully Numbers Maker isn't as avant-garde as it could be. No offense to you free jazz artists out there, some of it's just hard for me to listen to. Anyway, the album that Desertion Trio released just before Numbers Maker is titled Twilight Time. This album's first track is a cover of the song Twilight Time, originally recorded by a band you may have heard of before, The Platters, which just goes to show that the arc of time is a flat circle, and all of this has happened before, and all of this will happen again. But I'm not here to review the album Twilight Time, or induce existential crises. I'm here to review Desertion Trio's latest album, Numbers Maker, released in April of this year, 2021. Despite having only 5 tracks, Numbers Maker clocks in at just over 40 minutes, giving each track an average length of 8 minutes. Although, spoiler alert, this album wasn't my cup of tea, it was certainly a new experience, which is what I was really hoping to get out of this project that you and I are doing. I wanted to expose myself to albums that I wouldn't typically listen to, and Numbers Maker is certainly outside my usual wheelhouse. I wish that I had a broader music vocabulary to draw from, because this music is pretty different from the types of music that I generally listen to and am exposed to. For example, the music I'm used to has an established rhythm that generally persists throughout the entire song, without much variation. The music I'm used to has a discernible melody that repeats several times throughout the song. A song is usually a cohesive work, with the beginning resembling the end, typically forming a loop of verse-chorus, or at least containing a musical theme that is developed throughout the piece. Now, just because these qualities apply to most music you'll ever hear doesn't mean these qualities are inherently good. Some of the most fascinating art breaks conventions in interesting ways, and music must push boundaries in order for new genres to be born. I'm just saying that this is what I'm used to. Numbers Maker, on the other hand, can go from this in one song to this later on in that same song. Or from this to this. This isn't bad, it's just not what I'm used to. If most songs are a loop around a lazy river, bringing you back again and again to familiar ground, then tracks from Numbers Maker are straight shots down a river, sometimes meandering, other times rushing through rapids, but hardly, if ever, returning to the same musical theme or idea. I did appreciate that Desertion Trio is just a trio, consisting of electric bass, electric guitar, and drums. With free jazz, the more instruments you have, the more you can have going on at the same time, and the simplicity of a trio helped keep my poor Philistine ears from being too overwhelmed. The first track on this album, Albion, does have a theme established in the first 50 seconds of the song, then revisited again at 6 minutes 50, but everything in between is, to my ear, a turbid, ever-shifting sea of bass, guitar, and drums. Powers was the most cohesive track on the album, and by cohesive, I just mean it felt like the drums, guitar, and bass were all playing the same song. It doesn't have a typical structure though, and is constantly traveling in new directions. Bwist has some bizarre guitar. It just sounds like the guitarist cranked up the distortion and then brushed his teeth with his guitar, but at least it's going places. One of my least favorite qualities a song can have is monotony and being too repetitive. If a song only has a single verse and chorus, and that goes on for more than 5 minutes, that's too long for me. Normally a 9-minute song would feel like an eternity, going round and around the same musical theme, but the nice thing about Bwist is that each phrase feels new and different. Taboo is more laid back than the first 3 tracks, but still has a loose structure, and Numbers Maker's got some of this, and some of that, and a little bit of this. While I certainly think this album is performed well, it's just not for me. Using our rating scale, I only give it a 2 out of 5 because I won't be going out of my way to listen to any of these tracks again. And now for the very first apology, Zane, my last video was an hour late, and in recompense for that tardiness, I watched John Cena Eats Bing Chilling, left parenthesis 1080p, right parenthesis, left parenthesis CC, right parenthesis, which is about a minute long. It's John Cena eating Bing Chilling. I have watched it as punishment for my lateness, and I deeply apologize for my tardiness. Have a Merry Christmas, and I'm looking forward to your album next week.